nonprofit Utopia. I'm here with Barrelhouse Bonni McKeown, and we are live from the Chicago Hope Cafe. And without further ado, I'm gonna let Bonnie do her thing, and then we'll have a conversation. Hi, that was awesome, awesome. I'm loving these blues, loving the blues.
And tell me why you like the blues, Valerie. What is the blues? You come from the blues community.
What is the blues? The blues are a reflection of our everyday life. It's a reflection on the issues of the day. And God knows if you live in Lawndale or Chicago, if you're African American, you have issues.
You don't. And so the blues were created to tell about these issues.
Yes, 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 and help us to cope. Yes, and Bonnie, you're gonna tell us more about the blues and how they can help, and give us some background, your experience with the blues. And you know what, I know this is a weird question, I'm putting you on the spot, but you probably get questions like this all the time. How does a white woman from West Virginia, who is a Quaker, get involved in the blues and know so much about the blues here in Chicago, on the west side, no doubt?
Well, there's two things. First of all, I lost my job in my family business.
So you got the blues.
I got the blues. Secondly, I grew up in the 60s when the pop charts, the top 40, had all kinds of wonderful music. And I came to find out later, all this music was rooted in the blues. That means not only jazz, we had Louis Armstrong singing Hello Dolly, we had Aretha Franklin singing Respect, and we had country music as well as rock. All of this is based on the blues.
Right.
So in order to learn how to play, and I got this urge to play, I knew how to play the piano, but I had to learn a little bit more about the blues. So I went to blues camp, which happened to be in my home state of West Virginia at Augusta Heritage Center, and learned how to play the music that I loved. And then I got the idea, well, after I started to try to be a performer, I found out that there was a lot of injustices in the music business that disfavored the very people who created this great music of ours. And it's a little tricky, I say, of ours, because it's America's roots music, but we must never forget how it was created. And as B.B. King will tell you, it was created by people coming on ships against their will. And as my friend Larry Taylor says, they would be humming on the ships just to keep from going crazy, being in chains in filthy conditions. They somehow survived. And they built this country. A lot of it against their will, but some of it they built themselves. And they've created many wonderful things, inventions, and in Black History Month we'll be honoring all that history. But we're here today to talk about blues, which is America's roots music.
And it's interesting, you and I, we were having a conversation. We're just closing our program today. We had a program, Nonprofit Blues You Can Use, right? We talked about how everyone in the country seems to be experiencing the blues. It's not just Black folks, it's not just people in certain communities. We all have the blues. The nonprofits, especially today, are having the blues given some of the changes in our government structure, and we'll talk about that another time. But we wanted to ask a question of you, just in general. Why is the blues so important today?
Well, I think the blues was created because when people were enslaved and afterwards in Jim Crow, and now we have new Jim Crow, and Valerie's going to talk about, now it's turned into James Crow, which is kind of officially authorized Jim Crow. And it was actually, Jim Crow was officially authorized by some of the horrible laws that were passed, which are regressing now. And that's why we all have the blues, because we're trapped in an economic system that seems to be beyond our control. What are we going to do? How do we as individuals, how do we as people who want to change things, that's why nonprofits exist, because they're not profiting from the situation, they're trying to make changes, however personal, however systemic. And we have to realize, first of all, how we do have the blues.
Right.
Before you can change anything, you've got to realize, if you will, how serious things really are. And blues looks at this square in the eye and says, I'm going to make a song about this, and I'm going to share it with my friends and my family, and we're going to laugh at this situation, basically. And that's how we're going to get through it together.
Yes, indeed. And you also have, what is it, the School of Blues? Is that the name of it?
It's a program. It's not a place. I call it Chicago School of Blues Workshop. And I have a traveling workshop, which of course you're welcome to hire me and my friends. We go from place to place and we teach the blues in whatever way is appropriate to that audience. Long ago, with my West Virginia friend Doris Fields, who is known as Lady D, and she is West Virginia's First Lady of Soul. She's a singer and a songwriter and an actress. We worked on this. How do we get the blues down to the level where people are really at? Because if you try to teach people instruments now, you find that a lot of schools aren't teaching music, and there's a basic illiteracy about music these days because it seems to be so much of it is created on machines. People have lost the basic skills about how to play instruments together. So you can't start with instruments, but you do start. Where did the blues start? It started with a voice and a beat. Just like music around the world, from thousands of years since the human race was invented by God, we've had a voice to talk with and a beat. And people in Africa were famous for working to the beat. And blues grew out of work songs and spirituals when people were calling upon God for their situation. That's where the blues came from, or what we know as the blues in terms of music.
Okay, that's awesome. So that brings me back full circle. You know, we talked about blues you can use, right? And when we promoted today's event, we talked about how, one, everybody has the blues, and nonprofits obviously are experiencing the blues, but we can also use the blues to, you know, not only drown our sorrows personally, but we can also use the blues to further our missions as nonprofits. So, I mean, I thought of a number of ways, you know, and first of all, when I talk about furthering our mission, we want to look at our raison d'etre, which is a French phrase for why are you here, you know, to be or not to be, I'm sorry. I digress. But really, your mission is your whole purpose for being. And there are a number of ways that the blues can be used to further your mission. And one of them that I thought about, obviously, is when you're having a fundraiser, you want to have people to perform. And feel free to contact Bonnie and her friends. They're wonderful. I've seen them in action. They've taught me a lot. I still got a lot to learn, but they've taught me a lot. And then another way is, you know, suppose you're doing youth programming or programming for seniors. You know, I find that the blues is a really, really good way for everybody to relate, especially if you're doing intergenerational programming. You know, I find that young people who have never ever experienced the blues, they find an appreciation for it. When you're working with seniors, they obviously have an appreciation for it because, you know, it's bringing their memories. So you can develop some really good programming, educational programming, social programming, programming that will work with, say, Alzheimer's patients, people who are having early stage dementia. It's a great way to have them to respond to you and all that good stuff. And then one more thing, and I know Bonnie is like, this is her hook, right? One more way you can do it is to have, say, a strategic planning session where you break up the monotony of the planning with some blues, or do it at a luncheon, that kind of stuff. So I digress, but all of that to say is you need to really get in contact with Bonnie, and Bonnie will switch over, and she'll first of all tell us how we can contact her so that she can do one of her workshops, right? So.
Yes, and you can get a hold of me at my website, barrelhousebonni.com. That's B-A-R-R-E-L, as in barrel, because this old piano music was called barrel house music. It was in these juke joints where they just had a couple of beer barrels propping up a plank of wood, and that was your bar. So it's Barrelhouse Bonni, B-O-N-N-I.com. You could just Google me or something. And I did want to mention that I bring Chicago's finest heritage blues musicians as guests in my workshops to show the skills that it takes to play guitar, to sing the blues, to play bass, drums, harmonica, saxophone, whatever instruments are used. The young people that may not be familiar with how bands play together, they get to see the skill that it takes to master your own instrument and express yourself that way. It gives the youth a different way to express themselves. They got it together with spoken word.
Right.
And remember that hip-hop started as protest music. It didn't start as dirty gangster rap. It started in New York with young people expressing what was really going on around them. Mm-hmm. So in that way, hip-hop is really an outgrowth of blues, even though it's spoken. So we try to tie that all back in and reconnect generations by way of these workshops. Sometimes I have senior workshops where it helps the seniors remember, you know, some of the really good times in their life. And as everyone knows, parts of the brain that deal with words and music are different. Mm-hmm. So elders, even if they've forgotten how to talk or recognize people, often will come back to life if you play them some blues. And I've actually had people in nursing homes get up and dance because they hear that music. Another thing I really want to say is there's something about blues music, and we haven't done a scientific study, but the chords in this music are actually healing. The flatted third, the flatted fifth, and the flatted seventh. There's something about these chords that just makes you feel better and calms you down. So if there are any scientists watching this, I'd really like to get together with you so we can do some research on music therapy, which has not been used as it should be, because I think music therapy came from European people, and they use, you know, really good classical music from Europe to be evocative, but blues goes further than that. It actually is healing. So this is one of the words I want to get out in my workshops and in my home, my music. Again, you can contact me if you need a blues band. Larry Taylor will be happy to play for you. This is genuine, real West Side blues and soul music. Larry Taylor is at LarryTaylorChicagoBlues.com. So my website again is BarrelhouseBonni, BONNI.com.
Okay, so with that said, I want to say thank you so much, Bonnie. Thank you for everything that you've done, and I wish you much success with your workshops, and I look forward to talking to you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Valerie. And this is live at the Hope Cafe in Chicago at Roosevelt and Western. Come down here and have a cup of coffee sometime. It's a nonprofit that benefits the school here. Valerie Leonard, we're signing off. This is Barrelhouse Bonni and Valerie Leonard. See y'all.
Bye.